If you have a door that looks anything like this, some rotten wood and a loose latch pin that's about to fall apart, or you just need to install a lock set in a door that's thicker than the standard 1 3/4 inches, or you're interested in the Milwaukee Hose Dozer Lock Installation Kit, this video is for you. Stay with me. In this video, I will repair a wooden gate door, install a lock set in a thicker than standard door, and redesign the strike plate to allow for door expansion and contraction. Welcome to the channel. I make videos about DIY solutions and pass on what I learned to you, and I review those products that are key to the solutions. Thank you, subscribers. If you're new, please consider subscribing and hit that notification bell to be notified of future videos. Let's go. It's time to fix this. I've been putting it off for a while, but the time has come. This part of the door that houses the knob and latch is rotten and falling apart. The rest of the door has some miles on it, but it's in decent shape, and I don't want to replace the entire door if I don't have to. And it doesn't look good. And as we all know, if it doesn't look good, I'm in the doghouse. I'd like to replace this piece of wood and the lock set, but is it feasible, and what's the best way to do it? Let's bring this door inside and take a closer look. I'm going to remove the lock set to see if it has any mechanical constraints that will impact what I want to do with this door. I've noticed that the lock set is recessed, and it's recessed on both sides, and I want to know the depth of the recess. So we'll take a quick measurement. All right, there we go. That looks like 3/32. We'll call it 1/8. It's 1/4 inch on the other side, so the combined recess depth is 3/8 of an inch. Looking at this a little closer, I realize there's some black caulk that was used to cosmetically fill the gap between the handles and the recessed area in the door. Looked good, nice touch, probably worth doing when I put it back in. There are two things I wanted to understand about this lock set before going forward. The first is the positioning of the latch relative to the handles. This has quite a bit of lateral travel here, so it can be positioned in the center, a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right. So that's good to know. I want to position it in the center, so that should be no problem. The second thing I want to understand was the span between the doorknobs. To do that, I put these screws in. I only put them in about 4 turns, which I think is probably the minimum that you'd want. More is obviously better. So with 4 turns, measure this, it's just a little over 2 inches. So I would conclude that this will span 2 inches without any problem. More than that gets a little dicey. I made a little drawing of what I'm working with. In my case, the door is 2 1/4 inches thick. There's a recessed area of 1/8 inch on the inside and 1/4 inch on the other side. So that leaves a span of 1 7/8 inches. In fact, this is set to 1 7/8 inches, so I've got plenty of room. It'll take 2. So the plan I have should work. Mounting a lock set requires drilling 2 holes in the door. A 2 1/8 inch hole for the cylinder and a 1 inch hole for the latch bolt. The position and alignment of these holes is critical. The distance for the door edge to the center of the cylinder hole, commonly referred to as the back set, must be exact. The standard back sets are 2 3/8 and 2 3/4 inches. The latch bolt hole must then be well aligned with the cylinder hole. These holes can be measured and drilled. It's not rocket science. But a much easier way to get this right and not risk ruining a door is to use an installation kit or jig. There are a variety of them out there. Craftsman makes one, DEADBOLT makes one, as do Irwin, Lennox, Milwaukee, and Ryobi, and there's others. I think they will all work with doors of standard thickness, 1 3/8 or 1 3/4, but the door I'm working with is 2 1/4 inches thick. Of the jigs I found in the under $40 price range, None would work on a thicker than standard door, except maybe the Milwaukee. The Milwaukee kit looks like it might work or could be made to work because it has a split design that may open wider than advertised. It also has a self-centering latch hole alignment feature that may be ideal for a thicker than standard door. I took the plunge and bought one. If you're aware of an affordable jig designed to work with a 2 1/4 inch or thicker door, please leave a comment. This is what's in the box. Here's the fixture itself. It has an adjustment here to adjust for the amount of offset between the door handle and the edge of the door. The two standard sizes, either 2 1/8 or 2 3/4. You just move it like that. This was the door. Tighten this knob up on the door. That would hold the fixture to the door after you measure and get it lined up exactly where you want it. This is the 2 1/8 inch hole saw. It comes with a spacer. That goes in here. I'll show you what that does in just a second. There's a little washer and an adapter. That just goes in here, like so. And then the mandrel attaches to that. So when you drill the hole for the door handle barrel, you drill through like that, and the spacer, which is about right here, that'll stop when it hits the edge of the door. And then so you drill through, it stops, and this part of the bit will poke through the other side of the door. So then you drill the other way. What that allows you to do is to get a clean edge on both sides of the door. If you drill all the way through, this will bugger up the other side of the door. So that's how that works. We'll leave that all together. And of course the mandrel fits in this 1 inch hole saw, and this is what you use to drill through here for the latch sleeve assembly. They give you a few drill bits to drill pilot holes for the strike plate on the door frame and the door itself. There you have it. Alright, this is the jig here. First thing I'll do is see if it's wide enough to fit the door. It's off. It's not wide enough to fit the door. It needs about another 1/4 inch. If I remove this knob, I might be able to make it work. I've changed location to have a more solid surface to work on. The thickness of my door is 2 1/4 inches. That's the thickness of this. And the max opening of this jig is 1 7/8 inches. Ideally, I would like to get the jig to open another 3/8 of an inch. If I can't get all of that, I think I can make some thickness adjustments to the door as I rebuild the edge that houses the door handle. To refine my plan, I need to determine if I can increase the open of this jig, and if so, by how much. To do this, I'm going to attempt to remove this knob by pounding out this pin that seems to hold it on. You can see that better in the picture. I've got a couple things to try and do that with. I've got an old nail set. I've got a little nail here that I ground the edge off of on, since I don't have a punch that's small enough. So I'm going to give that a try. Alright, easier than I thought it'd be. Okay. Alright, so now the pin is out. Need to make sure I don't lose the pin. Alright, so the knob comes off. Alright, so now let's get this out of the way. Alright, let's see how wide this will open. Looks like it'll open quite a ways. Alright, here's my door. The door fits in there. So it'll certainly go wide enough to fit the door, and even wider. I'm running out of room here, but okay. Let's just measure this to see what it is. Let's call it 2 9/16 or something like that. Alright, anyways, it's enough. All I need is 2 1/4. So this is beautiful. Alright, so if we turn this a little more, Let's turn it back in a little bit. Alright, I don't know if you can see it, but there is a little bit of a flat edge on this. So to tighten it up without the knob, I should be able to just turn it with some pliers like that and at least get it snug. And then after that I can always put a clamp on it. This is good news. This will work. And a nice part is this section of it will automatically self-center to put the bolt in the middle of the door, which is right where I want it. Awesome. Today I'm going to remove this piece of wood. I've already taken this off. That goes over the little port there. Nice piece of hardware. But didn't want to bang up the finish. This piece I'm taking off is a 2x4. It was held on by a few wood screws, so it was relatively easy to remove. Alright, that is one crappy looking piece of wood. Alright, I've got a lap joint here. I don't know that I'm going to try and do that. I think the quicker, easier way to do this would just be to take two pieces of wood, maybe like that. It's not exactly the same thickness, but it's close enough. That should work. Next, I'll cut the wood. Yesterday, I made the piece that's going to replace this board. I did this using two 1x4s, glued them together. The glue set overnight, so it's pretty well cured. When I was looking at that, I realized that the holes they're used for the Lockset and the deadbolt are very close to the edge. You can see how thin this is. It's really kind of ridiculous. It's paper thin, and here it's actually even broke through. So what I decided to do, actually add a little piece of wood to it. We'll add a piece of wood right here. That'll make it thicker by 3/4 of an inch. That'll be enough. And I'll move this bracket so it's a little farther down, and it'll attach to the face of this. I'm going to glue this, but I'm also going to put a few screws in it so that while the glue's setting, we can still continue to work on this. I am using Tile Bond 3 Ultimate Wood Glue, exterior, interior. That's good. Going to let the glue dry for 20 minutes, maybe half an hour. Then we'll take this piece and attach it to the door. It's been a little over half an hour, so this should be at least dry enough to continue working. I did throw a few clamps on it, but we'll take those off now. It will fit in there very nicely. These, by the way, are not ideal lap joints. Looks like they were hacked out with a circular saw. I mean, it's fine for a gate. This is not a fine piece of furniture. I'll put a lot of glue in here to try and fill some of the gap. You know, when I'm done with that, we will want to put some screws in here. I'll probably put some screws back in here anyways. So, without further ado, let's glue. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Well, that should be good. We'll let that glue set for a little while. Next, we get to drill the holes using the Milwaukee Lockset Installation Kit. As you can see, I've already taken the knob off. As you saw in the earlier section, that allows the jig to open wider than it normally would with the lock or the knob on. So what I want to do is drill these holes in the same place as they were before, and I don't want to drill it all the way through because on the other side I want to come through this way. But before I do that, I also want to drill a little bit larger hole. So this is a 2 1/8 inch hole saw. This is the one that comes with the kit. This is another hole saw. This is 2 3/4. And what I'm going to do on the other side is use this to drill a hole down just a little bit to provide this recessed area on the other side. This is about a 1/4 inch. It was about 1/8 of an inch on the other side. So on the other side I want anywhere between 1/8 and 1/4 will work. I'll probably have to touch it up with a router, but I want to make the hole with this, that way it'll be perfectly round and it'll be easier. But I want to drill this one before I drill this all the way through on the other side. The device comes with a little stopper that you would put inside of here that makes it an easy way to do that on a door that's a standard thickness. But since this is a thicker than standard door, I'm not going to use that. I put a little piece of tape where I want that to stop. So I want it to stop so that this edge of the tape is flush with the surface of this. So let's give it a go. I'm going to drill this hole first. I'm going to tighten this up. And I can't get it quite as tight as I normally would with a knob on. As I mentioned before, it has a little bit of a flat side on it. I can tighten it up a little bit. What I am going to do is just throw a couple clamps on here to hold this. Put another one on this side. I think that should be good. Let's give it a shot. All right, now that that's started, I'm going to take the jig off. All right, that worked just like it should. All right, wear through a little bit. All right, now we'll flip it over. To make the outside edge of the recessed area, I will use this 2 3/8 hole saw. To make it centered on the Lockset cylinder bore, I will use the arbor pallet hole that I just drilled. I want the depth of the recess to be 1/8 to 1/4 inch. I'll mark that with a piece of tape. So here we go. With the recessed edges drilled, I'll finish the Lockset cylinder bore holes. Now we will finish up the recessed areas using the router. It's not perfect, but it's certainly good enough. The space between the outside edge of the recessed holes and the Lockset will be filled with caulk. Alright, I'm happy with that. Now we'll drill the edge bore for the latch bolt. I'll use the cylinder bore hole saw to align the jig. I'm going to tighten this. This is self-centering, which I really like because I want it centered. Now we have the 1-inch hole saw here. And here we go. After the hole is started, I'll remove the jig before drilling the hole all the way through. Alright, I'm going to create the recessed area for the flange. I'm going to do that with a router. You can do it with a chisel. Since I've got the router out, I'm going to do that. Now for the test fit, the moment of truth. All right. Works perfectly. All right. Works perfectly. So far we've fixed the door and we've reinstalled the lock set centered on the door using the Milwaukee Lockset Installation Jig with the tightening knob removed. This worked great. There's a link below. The third problem to solve is the occasional vertical misalignment of the latch and the strike plate due to temperature and humidity changes. As you may recall, this is what happens. The latch bolt doesn't catch in the strike plate to keep the door closed. This is because the latch pin is lower than the opening in the strike plate. I had previously made the strike plate opening larger by filing down the lower portion, as you can see here, but it wasn't enough. The opening needs to be longer vertically. My plan to create a longer vertical opening is to cut the strike plate into two pieces and position them like this. Then I want to make a longer hole in the door jamb between the two strike plates. Because the lock set is now centered, rather than being closer to the back of the door, the strike plate will need to be approximately 1/4 of an inch closer to the front of the door than it was. I will measure this precisely with the door in place. I've drilled a second set of holes in what will become the front strike plate piece. These are the original holes. Since there's not much to get a clamp on, I'm going to attach the strike plate to a piece of wood to cut it. These are our two strike plate pieces, the front and the back. I painted the door and hung it. This is the lock set area with the recesses around the hardware caulked. So far it's looking good. Now to position the strike plate so that, will you please stop photobombing my videos? That's just my neighbor. Ignore him. Now to position the strike plate so that it aligns with the latch bolt. With the door aligned with the jamb, I'll mark the vertical and horizontal position of the latch bolt on the door jamb. Using these marks, I'll mark the needed position of the front and back strike plate pieces. Now I'll router out the recess area for both strike plate pieces so that they will be flush with the door jamb. We'll learn later that I should not have recessed the strike plate pieces. I'll mark the latch bolt recess area and route it out. To account for the curve of the front strike plate piece, I filed the front of the door jamb so that it would lay flat. I'll mark the screw positions and mount the strike plate pieces. Okay, well that is exactly what I wanted. Let's see if it actually works. The latch bolt doesn't catch because it doesn't touch the strike plate. As you can see, there is about a 5/16 gap between the door and the door jamb, much more than there would be in a normal household door. I didn't take this into account and should not have recessed the strike plate pieces. Off about 1/8 of an inch. I think there's a real easy remedy for this. I'm just going to throw in 3 washers. And we'll do this. Let's do a quick check, see how that works. It's perfect. The purpose of the back strike plate is to serve as a stop. If it does, this piece of angle steel is no longer necessary. To test this, I'll remove the piece of angle and try it. As you can see, the rear strike plate piece did not serve as a stop. The latch bolt slid over the back strike plate piece just as it did over the front strike plate piece. So the back plate serves no purpose and a stop remains necessary. If you're using this approach to solve a similar problem, don't bother with the rear strike plate piece. The strike plate design had some hiccups, but we solved the problem. The latch bolt catches in the strike plate, and the latch bolt can now travel up or down 3/4 of an inch as the door flexes with temperature and humidity changes. That works. If it flexes more than that, we're probably having an earthquake. Whoa, what was that? All right, to finish this project off, I'll probably put a little bit of fill in here and paint this. It's a little ugly here, but with a little paint on it, I think it'll look just fine. Here it is, all tidied up and painted. It looks good. I added some fill, and the black paint fills the imperfections quite nicely. This will keep me out of the doghouse. This project didn't go exactly as planned. They rarely do, but I'm happy with the outcome. We repaired the gate door, reinstalled the Lockset on a thicker than standard door, and redesigned the strike plate to allow for door expansion and contraction. The Milwaukee Lockset Installation Kit is a winner, especially if you have a thicker than standard door. I recommend it. There's a link below. Thanks for watching. If you found this helpful and entertaining, please give it a like. Click on the playlist below to check out my other DIY solution videos and the products that are key to these solutions. To get updates on future videos, subscribe and hit the notification bell. See you in the next one.